Shelley here with Sirius Taurus Moon Jupiter Hour Jupiter Day Midheaven 25 degrees Scorpio Ascendant applying to the Moon 9 and the Moon is 11 degrees Aquarius Jupiter 0 degree Leo in the 7th house applying to oppose Pluto in the basket that Rick Levine, famous renowned astrologer, said no astrologer can predict this Jupiter opposition Pluto in a bisextile with Uranus and Neptune, a double bisextile. So there's a lot going in the sky, but I have an economical hitmanship alert. This is particularly for Russian or Ukrainian speaking people, but not only. And first of all, a little bit of a disclaimer. How come I can give you an economical hitmanship alert? Simply because economical hitmanship targeting goes by certain, how should I say that? Somebody tried to convince me today that the Soviet people are very difficult and they keep money outside of the bank, like in big sums of money, and why do they even need that, and so on and so forth. They probably wanted to get from me whether I know that they're going to confiscate the bank. So as an astrologer, I can see Chiron in Taurus previously ended with confiscation of the banks. And eventually I got out of them that the Soviet Union used to confiscate people's savings. So it's not just about one part of the world or another. It's something that people see coming up. But the thing is that economic hitmanship works on, for example, if they would get me to believe that it's okay to target that population, then I would become more susceptible. I don't have 100,000 of anything in the bank, but or outside of the bank for that matter. But there was kind of like a mutual exchange of information, and this is allowing me to give out that warning. Now, that warning to the people that hear that video, I don't have a big channel, serves both sides of the equation. The sides of the people that don't want to have their assets confiscated or risk towards their assets, and the sides that are planning to confiscate the assets if they, how should I say that, if what I'm about to give as remediation will not be so administered, or they would not even tend to that. And again, it's not about agreeing, it's about tending to that. Okay, for example, we don't have to agree to be vegan. We can tend to this topic and state our argument or state our case very clearly, while offering viable solutions like, okay, what if we lived on organic land and we'd have to be safe from nuclear attack, not by a bunker, by denuclearification, which means abolishing fetus trafficking, child trafficking, infant trafficking, and so on, and all the things that are any dishonoring of the feminine, to even find out if we are originally vegan or not. So now, what is the targeting in this case? The targeting is of Soviet people who save money outside of the bank because they've already saw the confiscations of their savings. The first thing that they target these people by using AI or pretending that they have a relative that is at risk and so on. So that's one thing that is a precaution. And the other thing is, of course, knowing that the risk of confiscations of the banks is everywhere. I had a conversation in Israel/Palestine. When I say Palestine, I mean the entire territory. Okay, basically what people call Palestine/Eretz Israel. Um, so, what are the remediations I can think of? Definitely power of community in the sense of it's not about going beyond one person's means, but making sure that there are no homeless, that if people want to exit violence, they have the ability to do so independent of ability to work. Independent of ability to work is such a powerful point of remediation here. And again, it's not about going beyond one's means to assist. It's about if they have the ability, if somebody has the ability to assist, then that ability would be targeted by those that seek to do the economic hitmanship. So making sure that overall in the culture there is the ability to exit violence, that we don't do victim blaming, particularly when it comes to honoring the feminine. Housing independent of ability to work, particularly if the money came from like passive income from housing. Um, those things are going to be very relevant. Just keeping money outside of the bank at this time, I don't think would be suffice. Again, do I recommend to keep money in the bank? No. That's also what I argued with that woman, saying, "Oh my God, Shirley, it's not a financial advice. It's a Chiron in Taurus understanding. Anybody that keeps the money in the bank or anywhere that can be closed, that can be shut down on them during Chiron in Taurus is giving their power away or subjecting their savings to be confiscated." Now, do I say don't hold money in the bank? Absolutely. I don't say that either. I'm not anybody's financial advisor. I'm just saying that if the conversation about confiscation of savings is out there, we shouldn't expect that there wouldn't be attempts or moves on people's savings. Again, Rao is going more towards the direction of Deneb Al-Gedi. This is also a warning towards looters. Tending to these topics that I mentioned, particularly honoring the feminine, particularly abolishing rape, is if people need to, let's say, loot Spanish banks for silver so that the people can buy food, that's something that would be their best friend. That's something that would be their, not, I'm not saying guarantee for success, but it's going to be something that's going to assist them in this situation where certain people have to be on the looter side. One thing I want to warn, when it comes to energy crystals, to the people, how should I say that? Beware if a person, let's say, if people have two of something and it's exactly the same thing, maybe take one, but leave one. Why? Because, for example, I just went to buy lepidolite, and lepidolite was given to survivors that were going through horrendous terror. So that's not something we want to steal from a person. It doesn't have good effect in the ether to take that away from a person. Okay, very, very important. But let's say somebody has two, um, then taking one, keeping one. But you're gonna have to, if you're going to loot for crystals, make sure you understand crystals. You make sure you understand energy crystals. Make sure you know to discern between a tourmaline and a kunzite, or between a kunzite and a rose quartz. Tourmaline, for example, pink tourmaline can be more on the physical survival, but it's juxtaposed with lepidolite to balance the nervous system. People need to have them both usually. And so saying, oh, this person have so much, taking one is creating a situation where the person with the looter might need both. Okay? And this is okay, this is a little bit of alchemy to keep in mind. Um, so making sure nobody is violated, making sure nobody is harassed, making sure you're not using um, what people call sexpionage, because this is trafficking infants. Okay, I'm not going to go into the entire explanation right now, but this is something that can be particularly important, um, to not undermine whether somebody is. This is more for people that are on the looter side, if that makes sense. um, if people, now here's another thing, if people may be targeted in various ways, and one of the best investments is to curate going from misplaced arousal to relaxed arousal, from trauma bond to secure attachment, even setting the intention, because when we talk about children, the children are harmed, and then the consciousness is of adult. So if weird things happen, understand that you're not tackling just the child in front of you, but the adult that was harming them and tries to get through them to another person. So why am I saying that? A lot of people can get into weirdness, okay, into all kinds of weirdness. Question is, it's not about question, it's about, hey, that's now going from misplaced arousal to relaxed arousal can tremendously alleviate a lot of these things, particularly when we have the ages that are bordering, that the children look 17 and they look older, 14 and they look older. Um, Not the time for parties in general. I know that there can be parties even in demonstrations and stuff. Anywhere where there can be drugs, okay, is very simply put, drugs or alcohol. Um, it kind of like, if you have to loot for the spirulina or stuff, because you're gonna need to stay sober. I know that there are solutions to addiction, or looting those who gatekeep solutions to addiction. What do I mean by that? Um, I know that there was a drug that they said that could alleviate any addiction. So if that drug is, let's say, is costly, looting the pharma that manufactures for the drug itself and distributing that to people, that can be a good venture. Okay, so making sure that the culture, that the community is honoring the feminine is one of the best remediations that I could possibly give to either side of the equation. Um, yeah, more things that assisting people that are stateless or that have no papers is becoming acutely relevant, and not electing candidates that negate anything that I said. Okay, it's people that want to limit the citizenship, or people that want to that their housing policy is um, not so affordable or not so accessible. People that any type of sexism or misogynia. Okay, because it's using the simple right to vote, and there are going to be elections in a lot of places. I think September, October, there's election in Israel, if I'm not mistaken, and it's using the simple right to vote because it's counted in a very different way than people think. It's counted in the sense that people know what the person voted, and and some of the looters will know what the person voted. That's the thing. So now, of course, some people might be voting by force, and this is naturally to be taken into account. But also, and is to be taken into account by the looters. Yeah, I mean, the whole issue with Rao Deneb Algadi is wealth redistribution. And remember the square to beta per se. The square to beta per se takes full precedence, meaning um, beta per se is dead bodies upon dead bodies. Okay, it takes full precedence over the Nebalgadi. Okay, um, now if we'll remember, by the way, if we remember that, we're gonna do the Nebalgadi well. Um, more more things to think about in Rahu around between Fomalhaut and Denebalgadi. There are a lot of people that love to help the people that are kind of like in not a good situation, but they also need to withstand success. They also need to withstand them being successful, thriving, particularly setting boundaries. When I talk about the Beta per se region, okay, because otherwise they are fooling themselves, and this can undermine them unnecessarily. It can undermine their kindness unnecessarily. Um, so more things to think about in this situation is hmm, yeah, I talked about electing elections and votes. I talked about, oh, naturally people that want to take the right to vote from certain parts of the population, um, and understanding that anything that takes away human rights is not actually a legal vote. I think is important. Particularly women rights and human rights is important, because nobody is going to, how should I say that? when it comes to food, looting food from even religious monasteries that promise food in favor of conversion, then looting food from them and distributing it without converting would be one of the best lootery that I can think about. Even looting the entire, let's say, looting a religious structure and repurposing it for housing without independent of ability to work is one gigantic lottery. Again, I don't know how to execute those lotteries, but this is amazing type of lottery that is remedials on all level. It's remedial on all level of persecution. Um, what do I think about burning religious institutions? um, Secondary to many things. Again, if you can repurpose the place better than to ruin the place. Ruining the place could be seen as kind of like it could, that anger could be harvested not to what people want it to be harvested. And again, usually that anger is about child abuse that happens there, so it's not a religious persecution per se, but it can be it can kind of serve the people that do that are committing the offense within and outside religion. And this is why I kind of don't tend to support that. It's not like I'm against that if it's something that doesn't burn the people, but I'm not. But I don't see the merit of that in that sense. Um, More things. Marie Antoinette stories. Um, less useful than actually protecting women. Okay, it catches a lot of, how do I know, like it's kind of like a rage bait, but it's also targeting the feminine unnecessarily, or giving too much power to something that's not really that powerful anymore. Um, so plus, let's be very honest. If y'all gonna loot stuff, y'all gonna loot some cakes as well. So it's kind of like whatever is on the menu, and it's probably not going to be the food stamp food. So Marie Antoinette stories can really backfire because y'all, a lot of us had to eat cake. Like if I went and a time where I didn't have a lot of money to buy food, or I needed, I don't know, essential oils for my nervous system, then whatever was left on the plate that was not touched, then that was my food. So sometimes it was cake, and sometimes it was chicken, and sometimes it was chips and whatever. Again, people escaping um, harm to, people escaping people that are harming the feminine. Um, Another word of warning: nothing that is funded by an energy company is an underground anything. Okay? Okay, I'm just saying, take that into account. Just like, and that awareness is very important. Again, listen to channels like Annika Lucas before making decisions to um, and because this is something that has multiple implications. I know, of course, I'm talking about exercising the choice that we do have, as long as we do have it. Okay, it's kind of like it's not about judgment of anyone. It's more about, it's kind of like, if you have a point of interference, those are possible points of interference, and that's a good thing um, to use. Okay, use our freedom, to use the freedom that we do have, and exercise the freedom that we do have. Of course, it's very personal for every person, and that's another thing again to be considered. Um, Lottery that has the least chances to backfire is in defense of the feminine, and zero trafficking. Okay, anything other than that brings the looters into persecution that nothing can protect unless they abolish abuse culture or rape culture or any type of residues of misogyny, or not just misogyny, is simply dishonoring the feminine is way more accurate to that particular. The feminine is also children, is also the conquered people, is also, and this is why I say, much better to loot the corporation than to loot individual people. And um, more things to consider at this time. Oh, if a person is exhausted, like it's kind of like, oh, they're not even able to tend to that, just acknowledging that is already tending to that. Okay, with Neptune, a lot of the times we're like, oh my God, I tended to this, I tended to that, I tended to that. I'm, I'm just exhausted and overwhelmed. I had a case where the picture of Sedna was gone, and I was overwhelmed, and I put a little bit of fruit where Sedna was, and it's kind of like the picture was not there, and I just went to sleep. The next morning I woke up and I managed to somewhat sleep, and then I woke up and the Sedna picture was underneath my feet. So um, so this is, even being aware that we are overwhelmed is already tending to things. More with Venus co-present with Ketu, the people that Venus Ketu in Magha, the questions of money or love is not an or thing. Okay, sexual boundary violation was basically done to take over the wealth of people, in which case love and wealth, in a way that is basically love and union that is actually loving, namely not rapey, is the wealth, is the everything. So people that are afraid of having everything, don't be afraid of having everything. Probably the spirulina is better than the booze. So, and it's better than the drugs, and it's better than, and if we keep that in mind, then that's something that I think can really facilitate this beautiful trine between Venus and Lilith, and the Venus Ketu and the Ketu Magha. It's kind of like in a world where there's no Peter rings in Magha, then we don't have to ask love or money. And in a world where there is no amount of love without tending to dropping the Peter rings, actually uh, okay, like um, um, summit. Let's take a look at the days of the summit. We're gonna have a summit in Ankara of NATO allied forces. I think 7-8, July 7-8. And everybody want to know, are we going to have that basket? Are we having the basket? I think not yet. The basket is the astrological configuration that everybody's been talking about. Um, 4th of July. No, we're not going to have the basket just yet. Could have been cool, but it's close enough. It's already applying. Everything's in check. Uranus is there, Neptune is there, stationing to go retrograde, and it's gonna go retrograde, I think, on the day of the summit. Krakatoa. Krakatoa, I think, by then will already have been. Mars. Safer. I think I addressed it previously. Um, there. Now, not the beautiful hour of the separatists. um, yeah. So, but the summit is going to be in Ankara, and I think it's pretty much understandable why the summit is in Ankara. We know that the BRICS is BRICSing, and Ankara is kind of BRICSing. Um, United States dropped the Truth Social about spending 999 billion. While the rest of them is kind of like at the 90 or the 99. Um, it's probably going to spark a lot of moves. Because the only way to answer that is a discussion that is um, and that means some people are going to ask Europeans how they made their money, and some people are going to ask Americans how they made their money. Um, because when people can't, when people can't raise it from 99 to 999, the only way to try to reply is to question the 999. And of course, such questions can backfire tremendously. Um, but Mars Uranus is conjoining right before the summit, so we're probably gonna see. We're probably gonna see. Mars is ruling the 8th house of NATO, and it's gonna be in the 10th house. So we're already upon the applying. We're already seeing kind of like the truth of what the countries are invested. in, and is probably gonna polarize because that's basically kind of leaking the 401k of NATO. For what, who's bringing what? Okay, it's kind of like the equivalent of that, which is right before Ankara, again, an act of transparency, which is a great appeasing of Mars Uranus. Now, of course, Mars Uranus is probably going to take it a couple steps forward regarding the transparency of where did the money. Everybody needed that line. Shirley, how do you follow the money so well? I don't follow the money follows me. Oh. So, let's see, how does that work with eating what's leftover food? Is like, yeah, because everybody remembers the canoe joke. Um, so of course NATO can't eat the leftover food from but um, but I think we're going to see probably responses. Let's see if we have them already. Like everybody's thinking about the person I'm thinking about as a response to that. Now, Berlin. NATO's mood changed. Carnegie. Jets. Soothing the transition to a Europe-led alliance. Let's focus on appeasing Trump. Oh my God. Yeah. And so what do you do? You rebel, daddy. That's what you do. No. Everybody's been waiting for that move. Said the girl with the Uranus in the 10th house. Rebelling the father. Now, last year, NATO allies rebelled $99 million. That I'm in my midlife crisis, but I'm saying. Anyway, okay, the 5%. Open a coffee house, the 5%. Not coffee house in a Dutch way. The trend is bigger than Trump. Um, okay, NATO, Ankara. Trump whisperer in chief, Mark Rutte. Stefan Wertheim. Pentagon just recently announced it will take up to 6 months to review U.S. force posture and bases in Europe. Within 6 months, we could be in a world war. Like, can they get the guy that they put in prison for hacking the Pentagon? To speed up the process. NATO 3.0. How come 3.0? Well, it was 2.0. Gaza, not a member of NATO. People trying to get things off the discussion table, not really able to do that with Iran. The NATO Summit. Okay. Yeah, NATO can't really expect to not be tending to Gaza. It's not a NATO member, will probably not help. Deterring attacks on European territory, with European countries taking the lead in conventional defense, while U.S. continues to extend its nuclear umbrella. We shouldn't expect that their conventional defense will not be a nuclear umbrella. It is. To break the convention, you need to know the convention. Inclination to chastise NATO and allies. I don't think that's the inclination. Anyway, I was called the milk snatcher, but people are not socialistically or anything like that. By the fact that I say that Beta per se takes precedence over in the square with Dana Balgadi. Yeah. Caught in Erdogan's Erdogan's not the one spending 1999. Ponders how to defend Eastern Europe as America pulls back. Russian drone campaign mapped NATO air defense gaps. That's an incredibly dynamic picture, let's say. Estonia plans to. Now here's the thing: if people are already hacking to one another, so they can fix the gaps. No, snow. You can put a paper. He's already a whistleblower. Estonia plans to allow NATO citizens to serve in its defense force. to allow NATO citizens to serve in its defense force. Allow. Okay. Russia waged a drone campaign in Europe and likely launched a drone from Shadow. Turkey's security role. I'm not gonna respond to that. Deputy Secretary General addresses the Istanbul NATO Parliamentary Summit. Well, that's 2 days ago. I'm trying to see if there's something with the Mars Uranus. Um, 2 hours ago, NATO plans to replace AWACS with Salab Global Eye jets. Salab. Saab Global. Where did Saab Global Eye jets? Swedish alternative. We're probably going to see a lot of those if the closer we are to the 5%. So people developing drones and jets. We're probably going to have the union of submarine to aircraft. Probably this. And probably European. Now, I know the United States situation kind of begs for weapon development, but that goes. It's kind of like European weapon development goes hand in hand with expecting them to raise the bar towards the 999, and that is, and that's quite of an interesting equation when we're thinking about military spending or the booming of military tech in the United States passive income portfolio, and the understanding that when it comes to Europe, the attempt to kind of have it from both side of, or from both ends. It's kind of like it's European, so it's the country that looted Spanish banks for silver during the Inquisition is they gotta know. Um, on the other hand, it's probably quite obvious that United States needs to be a part of the invested, not just the investing, and I guess they're gonna have to bargain for remediating the requirement for 5% if they want that to go to American weapon development companies, particularly the December. Whoa! Oh, fluffies! What the fuck? What was that flying thing? No, wait a second. I need to open the light. Something wandered into my eye because the room was dark. And who are you? Oh no. Okay. Um. Whoa. I did not know that there are those things. We're gonna have to do something about it. um. The room was dark and I had only the screen of my phone. Anyway. Yep. I don't know what is this thing or how did it got here. Um, but probably not gonna have such a great night's sleep. Anyway, um, time to time to check my essential oils power. I actually would need the tough ones. I would need the oregano. I would need. You know what? What if there's gonna be some to get us in the room? To get us in the room? Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna leave it open. And let's see if it scares the out of. So let's open the smelly things. The essential oils meaning. And I'll let you know if it works. We're doing a military defense. No. Operazione. Operation Eucalyptus. Okay. Almarosa. Um, so what was I saying? Yeah. Weapon development. And probably that the biggest weapon, the biggest stuff is going to be the submarine to aircraft, including all the levels. And a lot of people are counting on that because that's going to be our transportation for the next century. This is why I'm not going for the only pavement villages, but actually to already maintain the place for an ecosystemic such beautiful thing. Um, and I predict that's going to be the new Ford. And if we can get the new Ford without needing to even wait until the laborers strike and already have it on a line of production that is ethically produced, then we're gonna have a smooth transition. Yeah, wait, he correct us, I think. No. Okay. I love it when I think about housing, then all the things that I need to think about make themselves known. This is one of them. Cats, please. Where are the kitten? Wait, I need cats. I know what to do. The Phoenician taught us, the Egyptian taught us. They didn't know everything, but they did know that. Let's pick a cat. Cats were playing outside. Hello there. I have one cat with me. Y'all, looking like you're sailing. Yeah, absolutely. You have a mission. I got food. You have a mission, lady. Absolutely. Um, Believe me, you're gonna love this. And I'm gonna bring the rest of them. تخف. So, so like I said, when it comes to village city designs, I kind of see it more in a way that still allows the green and an ecosystemic submarine to aircraft per household. Those are the cities of the future. A lot of people are thinking about bunkers and so on. Um, a lot of people are claustrophobic, so yeah, yeah. And defending the air quality is important. Don't be scared. We're going home and there is food. Yeah. So that's my summit. My 2 cents on the summit so far.